the cultural sentiment coming out of Hollywood and coming from the music industry has veered left wing. Certainly both of our lives.
I mean, like since the 60s, I would probably say, yeah.
Exactly. So now when I say the society and the social fabric has been veering left, these are the things I'm talking about. And all of that is verifiable.
I mean, so I guess like if you want to look at those things as like a left versus right, like cultural shift, I mean, to a certain degree they are. But like, I think that as we progress as a country and as we progress as like a species, human beings, the idea that we've had a ubiquitous shift societally to the left since Nixon is just like absolutely not true. There have been shifts to the left, shifts to the right. I mean, even multiple times since I've been alive, right? And I was born in 95, right? Like since Nixon, we had a massive shift to the left to Jimmy Carter, and then we had a massive shift to the right with Reagan. Then we had a massive, shift after Bush back to Bill Clinton. Well, I say massive. That one wasn't even massive because of Bill Clinton being, getting elected based off of his bipartisan, ideals, which pissed off a lot of Democrats. But like, I mean, like I can like spit it out super quick. Like after what's his name? After Clinton, we had Bush 2. That was a massive swing to the right, especially after 9/11, right? We had this massive swing to the right where, if you were Democrat, you were basically anti-American for several years. When we went back to Obama, that was a massive swing back to the left because of the like craziness of the Bush years. And then we had like probably the biggest swing that we've seen to the right after Obama in regards to Trump. Like,
okay, everything you've said has been at the strictly political level, and it's really just everything you've said has been presidents. And alternating presidents is almost a separate political phenomenon because of voting patterns, and we could even get into more conspiratorial stuff if we wanted to, but I don't particularly care to do that right now because it's not germane to the point. When I say that we are culturally veering to the left year over year over year, what I'm talking about is
more like cultural things rather than like anything political.
Both. So politics. It's often said, and I don't fully agree with this, but it is largely true. Politics is downstream of culture. So starting in the 60s and really ramping up in the 70s moving forward, we started seeing large-scale left-wing social movements begin affecting policy. It started with things like the hippie movement, the sexual liberation that began happening in this country. We started seeing the breakdown of the family unit, and that led to things like no-fault divorce, that led to single-parent households, more easily accessed benefits for single moms, and child support and all this. Then they decided to start pioneering the racial front, and we got things like affirmative action and other race-based legal reforms like that. And then they decided to move on to the LGBTQ issue, and it didn't take very long. We had gay marriage. And
I mean, it took like 4 decades.
That's not very long in the scheme of the country. And when you look at human rights, the evolution of human rights over human history, 4 decades is nothing for something as big as gay marriage.
Over the entirety of human history, sure, but like our country is what?
Or even over the evolution of our country, 4 decades for something as massive as gay marriage is not a long time.
I mean, I would disagree with that, but I don't even know if we could even have an argument about that. We're just going to disagree on that. But
okay, so moving on.
Yeah.
And then you and hopefully you would not disagree with this. The cultural sentiment coming out of Hollywood and coming from the music industry has veered left wing. Certainly both of our lives.
I mean, like since the 60s, I would probably say, yeah.
Exactly. So now when I say the society and the social fabric has been veering left, these are the things I'm talking about, and all of that is verifiable.
I mean, so I I I I guess like if you want to look at those things as like a left versus right like cultural shift, I mean to a certain degree they are, but like I think that as we progress as a country and as we progress as like a species, human beings, we get more technology, we get all sorts of new ways to communicate with each other. We're exposed to different groups of people. Like the more exposure that you have to a group of people that you're not a part of, the more warm you are towards that group of people, right? I mean, there's been psychological studies on this for, I mean, since before the Civil Rights Act was passed, right? I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. I used to, but I mean, there was a study back in the I think late 70s, early 80s where
I'm familiar with the psychological research. You don't you don't have to convince me.
Yeah, but basically, like the more you are exposed to a certain group of people, the more warm you are towards them, the less you are like freaked out by them. So I think that like
that's largely how we got so much progress on racism. Yeah,
yeah, and I mean the same thing happens with gay people, right? And this is like and this is why I got banned from Twitch. One of the things I think that the gay rights movement did really well was they were like, hey, we're here, we're queer, and we're not going to go away. We're normal people. We have jobs. We want to live normal lives, and we don't want to be discriminated against, right? As they got more accepted in society, I think Will and Grace was like a big thing back in the 90s. Right. And I think I've never watched it, but from my understanding, he was like a gay character. Like the more you're exposed to different groups of people, the more warm you're going to be to them. So I don't know if like the argument that you're almost making by accident is that like right wing people or conservatives are opposed to any kind of forward progress in terms of like living amongst groups of people that they don't know well, right? Which would imply like conservatives are inherently bigoted, which I don't think that that's true, right? What I think it is the more open communication has gotten, especially with the internet, the more people are exposed to different things, the more likely they are to be like, yeah, why the can't gay people get married? Like, what's the big deal with that, right? When it comes to like ubiquitous shifts societally to the left, I don't think that I would necessarily say that's like a leftward movement per se. Than just like people are starting to come around to the idea that like we shouldn't be shitty to people that are different to us, like increasingly to different groups of people, right?
Okay, your your bias is showing in that you are equating moving towards a society that has more prioritization and respect for your values and things you see as good is equal to progress. That's highly demonstrative of your bias on that situation right there. Sir, we again have a fundamental disagreement.
Sorry, can you like restate that? Because I'm not sure if I quite understand like where the bias was.
You're equating society and law and policy moving towards what you think is good as progress.
Well, what do you think what is the value here that that I hold that you don't think that you would hold?
I do not think that the destruction of cultural institutions that are ancient and not and despite their frequent use and engagement are not fully understood by the average person, such as marriage. I do not think that the ill-considered and half-baked abolition of norms surrounding that cultural institution are wise. There is a very good reason why gay marriage was not honored in law. There are both sociological reasons and fundamentally, I believe, spiritual reasons why that is not a good idea.
Well, on that, like, you're entitled to have that opinion, but the problem is that the Christians in the United States wanted to have benefits for being married that people who are not straight are not capable of getting until gay marriage was passed, right?
And I don't see a problem with that.
Do you think that it is acceptable to discriminate against people based off of their sexuality?
I'm going to counter that question with another question. Do you think that giving benefits to people who are not providing the function which those benefits are predicated on is fair to the people that are providing the function?
Just to restate your question so I fully understand it. You're saying that there is the reason that there were tax breaks, essentially, the reason that there were benefits for being married is because they provide a function in society that is beneficial.
Yes.
Okay, and that would probably be like having children and having
procreation, correct.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, welcome. For people that are new, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Kick, I'm Sansol. I am a political science student. I like to talk about politics. I like to argue about politics. We talk about all sorts of fun things on here, like drama and politics. And I like to argue with people and chat about a lot of different things. Like, comment, and subscribe. I don't like to shill all